What's up, guys? Got a couple of bars here. These are my favorite, I think, 1 ounces version of silver is bars. But anyways, silver stackers, if you know, you know. I have a lot of people talking about other cryptocurrencies in my emails and my inboxes and stuff like that, and I just don't mess with them. And in this video, this will hopefully open up your eyes of why I don't deal with any cryptocurrencies at all. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. Now, obviously, I'm not a all Bitcoin maximalist as far as my investments, because I love silver. You guys know that. I also love her too. This is my wife right here. Don't look at the guy in the background. That's my wife. I put my wedding ring right there in front of it. And definitely don't like this guy. But in this video, he's going to talk about, now this is Traders University, Matthew Kreider. He's going to talk about how Bitcoin got started and why we can never have another Bitcoin. Now, don't get angry or upset about when he talks about the Immaculate Conception. He's not talking about biblical or anything like that. He's just talking about how Bitcoin and why Bitcoin got started and how it can't be repeated or duplicated. So let's see what he's got to say.
This is Matthew Kreider from Trader University, and today I want to answer the question, can Bitcoin's fair launch be repeated? There's a lot of talk about cryptocurrencies and fair launches. As part of this, I want to talk about as well what I mean by Bitcoin's immaculate conception. So Satoshi Nakamoto decides to launch his own new internet money. What does he do first? Does he first go to Silicon Valley to raise money? Does he meet with wealthy investors? Does he go talk to Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, or Sequoia, or Multicoin Capital? Does he go meet with Bill Gates or Klaus Schwab to get their blessings and endorsement? Does he do a large pre-sale and pre-mine? Does he go on a roadshow to raise money? Send me some dollars or some other currency and I'll send you some Bitcoin. In fact, Satoshi does none of these things. This is, though, what Vitalik and Ethereum did. They did a large online public crowd sale from July to August of 2014, where you could send them some Bitcoin in order to get some Ethereum. They also did a huge pre-mine where they awarded themselves and the Ethereum Foundation a large amount of the tokens.
You know, what's funny about Vitalik, or whatever his name is, he used to be a big Bitcoin advocate. He was writing in the magazines and stuff like that. And he decided to launch his own cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? And obviously he's the CEO of Ethereum. That's like the second best one, I guess they say, in cryptocurrencies behind the big boy Bitcoin. As you'll see in this video, I don't mess with it because of certain things, and he does. And basically, he's going to talk about Ethereum and maybe one more, I think Solana or something like that. But to me, this goes for all the cryptocurrencies. They got CEOs, somebody owns them and stuff like that. And as you'll see, Bitcoin is much different.
This was clearly an unregistered securities offering. There's a lot of data that can back this up. For example, we can see here Vitalik Buterin telling you why you should invest in Ethereum. This is what makes something an investment contract. We have this video, which I'll link to below here, an audio that basically one of the co-founders of Ethereum, Joe Lubin, telling whales and large investors how they can disguise their purchases. So this is one of the sinister things about the pre-sale. We don't know how concentrated the initial investors are, but we suspect it's a pretty concentrated group simply because they were giving advice how to pretend to be smaller than you really were. Here's Vitalik Buterin, and again, I will link to all these in the description notes below. I think you could put these together to make a pretty good case for the SEC. Here's Vitalik Buterin describing how the Ethereum Foundation will dissolve Ethereum Switzerland after the pre-sale in order to not be connected with the Ethereum token sale and thus avoid future legal problems. In other words, violations of US securities law. Again, this was done in Switzerland, but if these tokens, if Ethereum's going to trade and be sold to US investors as well, for example, Jack Mallers, I believe his mother was pitched on Ethereum in Texas. If you're going to sell these tokens to US investors, these things in the legal structure matter.
I'm gonna leave a link to his video in the description box, in the comment box, because I want you guys to watch this video in full. I don't want to steal his content or anything like that, and I want you to look at the links and everything else and read the comments and stuff, because As you can see, Bitcoin's a little bit different. Jack Mallers is the guy that owns the company Strike. It's and it's an exchange for Bitcoin, and also he's doing things with Lightning Network and everything else. So you can look that up. But yeah, just keep listening.
So does Satoshi sell tokens to raise money to fund the software development of Bitcoin? Because that would look a lot like an offering of unregistered securities, as we said, like Ethereum and Cardano and XRP. No, Satoshi does not do this. This is part of the Immaculate Conception. Does he mention an initial value for BTC, like one Bitcoin should equal $1 or $10 or a penny or something like this? No, he doesn't talk about it at all. There's only one obscure reference where he says it might make sense to buy some or to mine some, to get some, in order that in case it catches on. But Satoshi's not accepting money for these tokens. He's not selling them. He's not pre-mining them for himself, as we see. He simply just writes a white paper and some code and then releases them to a cryptography mailing list.
Now that right there is very important. You know, cryptography mailing list. These guys were nerds, man. You know what I mean? They were absolute nerds that were doing this. And he wasn't trying to make money or nothing like that. He was trying to make a better money. And as you'll see, he's a very, very humble guy, selfless man. Kind of reminds me of him, and I'll explain later. But yeah, it wasn't putting prices on it or anything like that. He was the first one to ever make or successfully make, a cryptocurrency that didn't have double spending and all that stuff. And he just... he made an immaculate technology for the future of money.
We still have the archives of this. The cryptography mailing list was called metsdao.com. And this, the Bitcoin white paper, of course, was released on Halloween, October 31st, 2008. Here it says Saturday, November 1st, really depends on your time zone. But this was basically an email that linked to the Bitcoin white paper. And then he released the mining software and the node software. The software was finally released on January 9th of 2009. And as part of the software, he hard-coded in the initial Genesis block. The initial Genesis block number 0, was not mined. This was the Genesis block, and it contained the newspaper headline, January 3rd, 2009, Chancellor on the brink of a second bailout, because, of course, this was during the great financial crisis.
For those of you that don't know, the reason why Satoshi Nakamoto did this is during the Great Recession in 2008. He started working on this because of all the money printing that was going on and just devaluating our currency and everything else. And he knew that the world was going to digital. He knew it. So he said, you know what, let me make a better money, a digital money for the people, decentralized. You know what I mean? Kind of like a digital gold. And I'll make a video about that later. But what an invention, man. What a selfless man.
Now, why did he include this newspaper headline? This is both a timestamp to show that this block, the Genesis block number 0, could not have been created before January 3rd, 2009, since it incorporates a newspaper article that was published on that date, i.e. there was no pre-mine of this block. And I should point out as well that the Genesis block, there's a quirk in the code where these 50 Bitcoin cannot ever be spent, even by Satoshi with his private keys. So this is both a timestamp to show that this block was not created before January 3rd, 2009. The story he chooses for this timestamp is also a critique of central banks and government bailouts, in particular a UK bailout of the banking system, i.e. this is good evidence that Satoshi was not just trying to create a new, better PayPal, as the Bcash crowd will tell you, but he was very interested in the issues of central banking, store of value, and how unfair government bailouts of the banking system are.
And as precious metal stackers, we can appreciate that because we want real money. You know what I mean? This is God's money right here, and it can't be printed. It can't be created ever again. Supernova made this stuff. You know what I mean? It's absolutely beautiful, and this is what I love about Bitcoin. It's the human version, the best close you can get to a digital gold. You know what I mean? And I just, when you see this technology and how it works and how it was created and why it was created, the more and more I look at it, the more and more I'm excited about it.
So here's the Genesis block we can see here through the mempool.space block explorer. And if we scroll down, we can see that there's this note about the January 3rd article from the Times in the UK. Here's the 50 Bitcoin that can never be spent. And then we have the block after that, which was actually mined. It was mined, call it 6 days later on, I believe it was actually January 9th if you line up these dates. But it was a few days later after the software had been mailed out to the list. So this was the first block presumably mined by Satoshi. Why was he mining at all? He was mining to provide security to the blockchain since there were no other Bitcoin miners in the very early days. Hal Finney would join him a little bit later. These 50 Bitcoin by themselves currently have a value of 1.1 million, but they've never been spent. They've never been moved. And we know this because we can look at the blockchain. So that's the first two blocks, block 0 and block 1.
Now, when he's talking about blocks, these are the transactions that happen with Bitcoin. And that was block, like he said, 0 and 1. And every 10 minutes, a block is mined, roughly, approximately. It's basically 144 blocks in a 24-hour period every single day. And right now, before this next Bitcoin halving, there's 6.25 Bitcoin in every block that's every 10 minutes. So it's 900 Bitcoin a day right now. But next year, in April 2024, those same blocks will be mined 144, except the amount of Bitcoin halving will go down. And here's a look at that right here. And as you can see, every approximately 4 years that happens. So 900 a day today, 900 Bitcoin today at 6.25 per block. Next one is that, next one is that, next one is that. And it's going to keep going up. That's why even though Bitcoin goes up and down, every few years, the lows are still getting higher. It's not about the highs, it's about the lows. So, as you can see, he kept 50, Satoshi Nakamoto, he kept 50 Bitcoin on the block. He doesn't even spend those. He hasn't took out one Satoshi, one Bitcoin at all. You're talking about selfless. That's hard to find somebody that's not greedy like that, is actually giving up his own money or his own, greed to help out humanity. Kind of reminds me of a guy that I know.
Now, did Satoshi take advantage of his privileged early position to mine as many Bitcoin as possible before other people joined? No, he did not do this. In fact, he did the opposite. He seems to have been providing just the minimal amount of network security through his mining just to keep the blockchain going while he waited for other participants to join. In these early days, there were really essentially no Bitcoin transactions. I believe Satoshi sent some Bitcoin to Hal Finney. That's one of the early transactions. But it was mostly just Satoshi mining empty blocks and providing proof of work security to the network. There's been some good research done by Jameson Lopp, among others, pointing out that Satoshi, or whoever this early miner was presumably Satoshi, limited their mining hash rate and thus ended up with far fewer Bitcoin than they could have earned. I'll link to this article below. Was Satoshi a greedy miner? He was not. In fact, it looks like that much of the time he actually turned off his Bitcoin miner for 5 minutes or paused it for 5 minutes after mining a block. So the real block time was something like 15 minutes because the block would be produced in 10 minutes and then he would stop mining for 5 minutes. So he was basically trying to do the bare minimum possible. And this makes sense given his following decision never to move or sell these Bitcoin. And again, we can look on the blockchain and see that these have never been sold and never been moved. This is not to say that they never can be, but 14 years after the launch of the project, the fact that these are worth billions and billions of dollars now, in excess of, call it $23 billion, and not a single sat has moved or presumably been sold, this tells you something. So Satoshi was not a greedy miner. There was no pre-mine. He actually mined the Bitcoin himself by spending real money on electricity and presumably mining on a CPU.
That's also very important because not only did he spend his time and his effort, but he spent his own money on doing this. You know what I mean? And when he talks about going back in time and looking at all this stuff, every single Bitcoin transaction or whatever, it's a perfect ledger. It shows every single transaction that's happening all over the world if you run your own node. And I'll do a video about a node later. But this is the people's money. You know what I mean? No government is tracking it. This is a bunch of libertarian, patriotic, freedom, sovereign people that are getting together and saying, "Look, man, we're not dealing with your money anymore. You know, we'll stack some silver and some gold and some precious metals, but as far as the digital age is concerned, this is our money. You know, we're not going to use the CBDCs. We're not going to use these BS cryptocurrencies. We're going to use this money because it's for us. It's for the people, by the people, and of the people."
Here's a quote from the Bitcoin Talk Forum from December 12th of 2009, so at the end of the year, the same year that Bitcoin was launched. He talks about we should have, this is Satoshi posting, we should have a gentleman's agreement to postpone the GPU arms race as long as we can for the good of the network. It's much easier to get new users up to speed if they don't have to worry about GPU drivers and compatibility. It's nice how anyone with just a CPU can compete fairly equally right now. Now, this was not something that Satoshi expected to continue, and I've talked about in another video how he was ready to defend the network with his GPU mining machines. But this was basically shows that Satoshi and the early Bitcoin miners had this gentleman's agreement to try to just provide security. This wasn't about getting rich. Again, in December of 2009, the value of one Bitcoin was zero. It had no value. And it really didn't have value until a couple years later when Laszlo spent 10,000 Bitcoin to buy a pizza. So these are very ideological folks. They're very, very high-minded, and they weren't focused on the profit motive, unlike people like Vitalik, who are pitching an investment. And this is one of the things that makes the Bitcoin launch very, very special.
Yeah, so basically in 2010, there was a guy that bought a pizza or two pizzas with Bitcoin. That is marked as like the first time Bitcoin was actually money. I think he traded in 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas.
How'd you get this idea to trade Bitcoin for pizza?
I just honestly thought it would be really cool if I could say, hey, I just traded this, open source internet money for a real world good. And I thought, what better thing than food? Food is a basic necessity. And, pizza, every geek understands pizza.
So how did you actually buy a pizza?
I just posted on the forum. I said, if anybody's interested, I'm offering 10,000 Bitcoins in exchange for some pizza. And somebody there said, hey, I'll take you up on that offer. So I sent him the 10,000 Bitcoin. I said, okay, here it is. I'm waiting for my pizza. And, he phoned it in. He paid with his credit card, and the pizza showed up at my door. Here you can see the original pizzas, and that's my daughter's hand. She was a year old.
Wow. So you paid 10,000 Bitcoins for one pizza?
It was two pizzas, actually.
Oh, you got two pizzas out of it.
And, maybe the person spent $30, $40, something like that.
What would it be worth today?
$80 million, I don't know.
$80 million.
A lot. People laugh at that, but at the time it wasn't worth anything.
Right. Is it true some people celebrate the anniversary of the day you bought the pizza?
Yeah, May 22nd, Bitcoin Pizza Day. So
it's called Bitcoin Pizza Day?
It is.
Raise your pizza.
Raise your pizza.
Raise your pizza. Toast to the one and only Laszlo. Thanks for being here and coming, and thanks for inspiring International Bitcoin Pizza Day. This is awesome. Cheers to you.
That's kind of cool, though, that around the world, people who know about it celebrate what you did, May 22nd.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of have a holiday in my honor.
I'm going to mark it down on my calendar.
10,000 Bitcoin. That's his worth right now? Oh my gosh. But anyways, Bitcoin is completely different than these other these projects, man. That's how I look at these cryptocurrencies. They're just projects. They're trying to do what Bitcoin is already doing, and they're failing miserably compared to Bitcoin.
It was on December 13th of 2010 that Satoshi Nakamoto posted on the Bitcoin Talk Forum for the last time and then disappeared for good. I believe he sent a few emails after this, but this was basically when he publicly departed the project. This is definitely one of the most selfless and intelligent acts in human history, I have to say. It shows tremendous humility. The nice thing about Bitcoin is there's no living, identifiable founder, which would be just a centralized point of failure. If you have a living founder like Vitalik, they can be kidnapped or bribed or co-opted in some way. Also, the nice thing about not having an identifiable founder is there's no contamination of the project by personal life or failing. So imagine if Satoshi had been a rabid Bush supporter, a rabid Obama supporter, strongly anti-gun or pro-gun, or had inherited blood money from some industrialist, or hadn't paid some taxes, or hated women or men or certain races. This would provide a unwelcome penumbra to the coin and would influence people's perceptions about the coin. But instead, we have a very, very neutral coin, and we don't have a living founder that can be co-opted.
That's one thing I love about Bitcoin. I'm a big history fan, and I absolutely love this guy. This is the GOAT, George Washington. And when I did my research on Bitcoin, and I started learning about Satoshi Nakamoto, he reminded me so much of George Washington. Such a humble man he was. Both of these guys. He's not exactly the same as George Washington. Obviously, everybody knows who George Washington was. He was a general. He fought. Crazy battles. Abraham Lincoln was a hero. A lot of these guys are heroes. But the problem is, when you go back and talk about these guys, there's always some naysayer that's going to point out their imperfections because they're human. They are imperfect. But with Satoshi Nakamoto, he made it his goal not to be identified. He didn't want anybody to know it was him because it wasn't about him. It was about the project. In Bitcoin, it was about getting digital and real money. He was all about protecting the network, getting this project done, getting real digital money out there in a digital age, and he didn't want to make it about himself. That's why, he may be alive, he may be dead, I don't know. We know about George Washington, but when I talk about George Washington or heroes like Martin Luther King or something like that, people are always going to bring up their bad things. When you look at these CEOs of Ethereum and all these other guys, I mean, we can point out their personal, goods or bads or whatever, but you can see these guys are greedy. They take a lot of tokens away, they sell off this and they back up that, and it's just crazy. But that is another reason why I love Bitcoin, because it can't be duplicated again, and you will never find another founder that became, in secret, made it in secret, didn't tell anybody about it, and didn't take a dime out of the project and used his own money to do it. Where else are you going to find that at?
Did Satoshi sell his Bitcoin on the way out when he departed the project? No, he did not. As we said, we know this by looking at Bitcoin. From the early blocks on the blockchain, the Bitcoin in them has never moved. If we take a look at block 5, for example, here on this block explorer, we can see that there are 50 Bitcoin mined. There weren't any transaction fees. And again, this Bitcoin has never moved. So that's how we know that Satoshi never moved them. Did Satoshi dump on you? No, he did not. But Vitalik and Solana VCs did. Vitalik has sold at least 25% of his coins. He dumped fairly early on in 2016, which shows that he didn't have a huge amount of faith in the project. He also became a billionaire in the process. I warned everyone about Solana in November, December of 2021, how they were preparing to dump, and indeed, it looks like they did dump. So these are very different projects. These are projects where you had very wealthy insider investors, and they took profits as soon as they could. And you had a lot of venture capitalists involved, which is not how you launch a new neutral money. So to summarize, what exactly is the immaculate conception of Bitcoin? It's this: a founder appeared and gave the world a gift, almost like Prometheus giving the world the gift of fire. He managed in the process to remain completely anonymous the whole time. And I am saying he, it could have been she or they. I think it was probably he, if you take a look at who's normally in math departments and who's interested in cryptography and libertarianism, it tends to be a fairly male group. But again, we don't know. I'm just using he as sort of an abbreviation. Founder appeared and gave the world a gift. He managed to remain completely anonymous the whole time. And this would be much more difficult and probably impossible to do today in the world of surveillance and iPhones and cameras and Ring cameras and online surveillance. And then Satoshi disappeared and had the self-control never to harvest his massive wealth by moving or selling his Bitcoin. Or perhaps it wasn't strong self-control. Maybe he just passed away and was not able to access it. We'll never know.
I mean, again, that's why I love Bitcoin, man. I don't think you're going to ever be able to duplicate what our founding fathers did for our country. I don't think you're going to ever be able to start a country like we did again. And I know I'm making a big comparison between George Washington and Satoshi Nakamoto. Again, he could have died. He could have got sick. whatever. He may not have been selfless and all this other stuff, but again, there's no face to it. You know what I mean? And he's going to show you right here how difficult it is to reintroduce or redo what Satoshi Nakamoto did with Bitcoin. I mean, it's virtually impossible.
So let's say that you want to do a fair launch coin today. Can you do it and stay truly anonymous? Otherwise, you will become a central point of failure that can be threatened or bribed or otherwise co-opted. Here's the second question. If you want to do a fair launch coin today, are you willing to work for free? And can you find people to help you that are also willing to work for free? Can these people be trusted not to leak your identity if it gets leaked to them? And if you do all these things correctly, guess what? You are still going to be 14 years behind Bitcoin. Good luck catching up with Bitcoin's global brand recognition, globally dispersed node network, globally dispersed miner network, extremely strong social layer, and of course all the mythology and stories surrounding and memes surrounding Bitcoin and Satoshi. Bitcoin's creation or discovery, however you want to label it, is a historical accident or a historical blessing that is unlikely to be repeated. So the only question is, are you going to fight it? Are you going to go out and try to copy it like Solana did, or Ethereum, or Cardano, or XRP did, and in the process committing securities, violating US securities law? Or are you going to do the smart thing and jump on the Bitcoin adoption train? There's only one crypto asset in cryptocurrency that matters today and that will still be here in 200 years from now, and that is Bitcoin and Bitcoin alone, thanks to its immaculate conception.
There you have it, guys. I couldn't have said it better myself. Watching that video just confirms my my belief in it. You know what I mean? I mean, when people talk about other cryptocurrencies to me, I just don't bother with them, because I know they're just projects. I know they have CEOs, CFOs, they got venture capitalists, they got all these things going on. Bitcoin is not owned by anybody. It's owned by the people, and the rules are already built into the network. Nothing can be changed about it, and it's hundreds of thousands of people in the United States, and more people around the world. There's millions of people that are all connected using this digital money. You know what I mean? This is why I say, and I'm not knocking silver or gold when I say this, but in a digital world, this is the only thing that can help us with the CBDCs. So it's up to you. You do what you want. You can email me for questions, and I can help you, get your stuff started and everything else. But there's plenty of videos on it. There's plenty of videos how to buy it and stuff like that. So when people tell me, oh man, I'm really scared of Bitcoin, is it in the government going to stop it? I'm going to make a video about that. I'm going to talk about why Bitcoin is unstoppable. Maybe in the first couple of years it could have done it, but there's too many people now. Again, there's millions of people that are using Bitcoin. I mean, remember when they tried to shut down gold and silver, or gold back in the 1933, but some people, kept it. You're not going to be able to stop Bitcoin. So there you have it, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did you guys get any Bitcoin? Do you like Bitcoin? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know either way. All right. I really appreciate you guys watching. Again, guys, we got to get ready for the future, because it's coming, and those CBDCs are coming. And again, they scare the living hell out of me. And I'm not going to mess with them. I refuse to participate. This is why I got my physical silver, and this is why I got my my digital money. And I have my physical silver on me, and I have my digital money on me. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Not your keys, not your coins. This is God's money, and this is the people's money. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and love, guys.